A school named Mitsuya is a private school where delinquent students gather from all over the West. This place is lawless and it is turned into a den for delinquents. Where fighting is seen as normal and part of the students' entertainment, we are then introduced to a pure and pretty maiden standing alone in front of the school. She smiles brightly, leaving her limo as her servants send her off. We are welcome to class 2. Yuri is introducing herself as she just transferred from a private girls' school named Elizabeth. She asks everyone to be in their care. The class looked at her blankly with confusion on their faces as she seems lost. The teacher introduces her as the representative's daughter, asking to be polite with her, although the teacher seems to be in bad shape as he introduces her to everyone. The delinquent students whispers gossiping that Eli Girls is a school especially to cater rich girls, wondering to themselves, why is a young rich lady doing here? The class boss suddenly stand up as it's his first time seeing a rich young lady. He debates if he should make her his woman. The class became in an uproar as this was expected from Takashi. Although the class is worried, laughing if the young lady might wet herself because of him, the teacher tried calming him down, asking Takashi to not be rude. Yuri gets approached by Takashi up close. She wonders what does he means his woman. Takashi wonders if she is a virgin, asking to teach her various stuff from now on. Although she seems uninterested in his words, she played along with his game, thinking on who would have thought that she would meet someone like him. Takashi took this as a sign of disrespect, but also confusion about her intentions. Yuri took a step forward, looking up to always entering the world of a Yankee manga. She held his hands in excitement, which Takashi suddenly became nervous by her actions. Yuri explained being intrigued ever since in her early childhood as she came across the Yankee manga in her father's home office. Being captivated by the friendship built through their blood, sweat, and tears, being passionate men who worked together to achieve a unique goal. Takashi seemed to be interested in her words as she wonders about meaning to ask something especially to boys like him. She questions their confidence, asking where it comes from, wondering why they move in groups, but also questioning their use of abusive language. Her words full of questions surprised the entire class, which Takashi reacted negatively, asking if she was making fun of him. Although Yuri tried turning things around, she revealed being deeply moved by their personalities. Her eyes full of excitement turned into a deep dark obsessiveness as she wants to know more about them personally. Takashi came down in a cold sweat, asking to be let go. She releases her hands, apologizing for being unconsciously being too excited. She reveals being too happy that she ended up holding his hands in the process. Takashi, on the other hand, is still confused about her, which once again she asks everyone to be in their care as she goes to her seat. As the class ends, Yuri is sitting down reading a small book in her hand. As she looked up, her eyes seems to have caught something interesting as she glances over the group of Yankees. She called out for the guy with the cropped uniform, excitedly praising their personalized uniforms to be quite fantastic. Wondering which shop he goes for tailoring, the Yankee didn't seem to pay her no mind, glancing on the other direction. Yuri perceived the Yankee as quite the shy person. The Yankee gossips of feeling like being approached as she gets too enthusiastic, feeling creeped out by it. They all agreed it's a bit scary. Although the class is still full of talks about her, questioning that it's crazy she's the only girl in the class, especially a rich lady. Talking to themselves about it being exciting and being the cutest, but most of all as they never seen such a pretty woman like her. A Yankee classmate jokingly wants to smash the young lady, although he suddenly bumped into a fellow classmate. As he looked over his shoulder, a timid and shy person suddenly dropped his papers. The Yankee didn't seem to find this pleasant, calling him out to be careful. They suddenly lost their vibe, leaving him all alone to clean up. A fellow classmate suddenly helped him, which upon a closer look he suddenly is surprised as it was none other than Yuri. He seems nervous being handed out the papers. She seems to see him struggling carrying too much paper, which he agreed while bowing his head. She questions if he would like some help. She expected him to take the helping hand, although he warns her to not bother herself. His warning concluded fear being better for her to not involve herself with someone like him. She questions this as he seems surprised by her enthusiastic question. She tried stopping him, although he didn't seem to let go. He panics as she smirks at him, insisting to let her help him out as it's good manners to accept a maiden's good intention. This altercation was seen by Takashi from a distance as he concluded he was getting pretty cocky. His friends questions his irritation, pointing out towards about the young lady. Takashi suddenly got up, calling them out as it's time to take care of that guy. They looked at the clock, seeing as they almost forgot about its existence, although they planned to surprise the young lady with it. He clapped, calling everyone to gather, which made Yuri turn as everyone crowds near Takashi. She glanced at the timid boy on his nervous state. The crowd stands in silence as Takashi opened the locker in the room, which he introduces number 4 being badly beaten in front of everyone. Yuri, on the other hand, wonders from a distance on what's going. The group immediately grab number 4 on the head, having his face be beaten up and swollen, being in a miserable state. Yuri looks at this with disgust as they called out to number 4 for being a good boy, as they warn him to not make any noise beforehand. They demanded greetings for letting him out, which he greeted them, but Takashi remembered ordering him to not use any human words, wondering if he forgot the orders from before. Takashi reminded him the words he shall used, which number 4 shakes in fear and humiliation, barking like a dog. Everyone in class laugh at seeing their entertainment of mocking a person. Number 4 wonders in his head that if he didn't do anything lame like protecting his friend, he would still be living peacefully even now, although his friend is grateful for being helped out. Takashi thanks number 4 for becoming a substitute replacement to the previous one. The timid, shy person is sorry for him as his actions of protecting him lead to something so cruel. Yuri, seeing this, took a step forward slowly, which the Yankee group suddenly noticed a young lady approaching. They mocked her for the thrill being too much towards someone like her that she ended up freezing. They joked about reaching under her if she wetted herself. Unbeknownst to them, she was just approaching as she called them out nothing but a bunch of crap. The Yankees became confused, wondering what her words were. As she stepped forward, reaching out to number 4, as she was deeply moved by his actions, calling him being a man among men. Number 4 seems confused by this. As the Yankees watch in confusion while she compared the people around her to be disappointing, she explains that she always looked forward to this day, although this school was said to be the number 1 school where delinquents gather, and was looking forward to its people. She turned around in a dark gaze as she was surprised it's full of trash people calling themselves to be a bunch of Yankees. The group didn't take this politely, calling out her bullshit. She immediately got grabbed as Takashi warns even if she is a woman, Takashi gives beatings equally. Yuri looks at him with enthusiasm as she slowly reached out behind him, immediately giving him a slam to the ground using martial arts, beating him down in one move. She looks at his opponent with disappointment, finishing him with grace. The whole class watched, surprising them with her moves. Takashi, on the other hand, lays unconscious as foam comes out his mouth. She announces to the whole class that she came here to take the top of the school and overrule everyone. She finishes her introductions, asking to be taken care well by everyone. The next morning, Yuri was leaving her household, which her butler seems to be concerned for her well-being, asking to go by car as it's dangerous for her to be alone. Yuri bids farewell with her carefree self. She didn't took the car, as starting today she decided to try out the train station. Yuri is excited getting her first transportation IZ card, being fascinated as she will be using it from now on. As she's seen excited waiting for the train, a businessman could be seen calling someone. His caller seemed to call out for the data being corrupted. The businessman named Shimizu assured the subordinate of being able to fix the problem right away, being grateful for having to contact him this early. He ended the call, boarding the arriving train immediately. He looks at his watch closely as he apparently despises individuals for making him go through much hardships, calling himself too competent. In his mind, he belittles people having to take care of them for their mistakes, as he is obligated to do so due to the position he's in, feeling under the pressure from the stress he accumulated. Although besides this he has some other business to tend to, he sells voyeur videos. He started out of curiosity selling it online, which miraculously his sales surpassed his expectations, as it's for the follows who wants to see his videos. He even as far as preparing hidden camera on his shoes, which shortly after his hardships it has become a great side job for him. His last victims were a married woman with a child. He now wants to find a victim of a schoolgirl. Although this side gig pays, he is undoubtedly filled with fear of getting caught by doing this, as it will jeopardize his social life, calling it a dead end for him as he mostly is careful of his attention. Inside the train, he carefully observed his surroundings, but he suddenly seemed to spot someone. His eyes caught a beautiful and lovely maiden wearing a school uniform, which was Yuri. He describes her being a fine woman. Although it's the first time he's seen her, he denied advancing her to be the next of his victim as she stands out. He then went over to his target as she stands behind a gloomy student with low self-esteem, preying on her from behind. He describes her aura of being an ordinary woman. By being plain, this would get him unnoticed, but also easy to use for materials. He then started putting his feet under her skirt with the hidden camera, which he smirks, being successful on getting the video footage. Although he managed to get footage, he decided to go beyond, as it just doesn't sell well these days. He took it above, as he should push on some more by touching her behind. The schoolgirl suddenly becomes in shock as she turns around to see him, but immediately glances forward, scared of the entire situation. Shimizu once again has successfully accomplished his goals, but also avoiding any suspicions, calling her out as a safe woman, although the high schooler covers her mouth crying to herself. Shimizu could have never imagined on being successful on filming a high school girl. He praises himself on his improved skills, looking forward on making dough. He suddenly got interrupted as someone questions his well-being, which Shimizu is taken by surprise. Yuri approaches him worried about his pale expression. The high school girl and businessman is seen confused by her approach. As the train ride ends, Yuri decided to comfort the high school girl by sitting right beside her. Shimizu questions as to why he also ended up getting dragged along. He wonders what does Yuri plans to do, as he disliked being involved with a woman like her. He gets pissed just thinking about an overconfident landmine woman like her. Even though she's a woman, he seems impressed by her cleverness on invading others' personal space while also wreaking havoc. Shimizu wanted to leave before he gets into trouble. He uses the excuse of heading to work, asking if he could leave immediately. The high school girl suddenly opened up the topic of being molested, pointing her fingers towards Shimizu, breaking the silence. Yuri seems to question this, although for him it has become troublesome, as he insists, pushing the thought of never molesting a girl like him, shocking the woman in the process as she indirectly called her out to be ugly. Although she tried saying it's the truth, he questions her evidence against the claims she made towards him, which Shimizu plans this to best stay calm and openly blame the victims. The high school girl stutters, finding evidence, which he called out her crime of falsely accusing someone of sexual harassment can ruin a person's life, calling out her stands as students nowadays are scary and questioning their aim for settlement payments. The high school girl caved in, crying herself as she doesn't know what to say anymore. Yuri watched this as she points out his nice watch. He is thankful for the compliments, but she again pointed out her branded clothes and accessories, calling it to be fantastic quality, which he agrees, liking the brand he wore on himself, but yet she finds fault in his shoes being non-branded, staring at him in silence, having Shimizu be worried about her thoughts. He immediately explained being a salesman and that walking a lot wears out his shoes quickly, although she caught on to his inconsistent managing to piss him off. She went ahead to not also call out his shoes, but pointed out his demeanor on pretending to be calm, although he is unusually emotional, going as far to stand out by acting concerned on what others thought of him. She got up close, immediately making him tense as she calls out his desperation trying to hide himself. This accusation made him freaked out in a panic, shouting that he didn't molest anyone. This made bystanders overhear their situation as the people call out his freak out moment and videotaping the whole ordeal from a distance. Shimizu panics as they are filming, seeing the situation gets worse if the footage ever reached the internet. He tried leaving quietly, denying their claims, which Yuri seems to caught onto his actions, immediately grabbing his shoulders and tackling him down forcefully. His body slammed the ground, making him unconscious, which she then picks up the evidence, asking what could the hidden camera be doing in his shoes, asking to deeply think about his wrongdoings. He gets taken away, shouting on being falsely accused as he cried himself, being dragged away. The high school girl approached Yuri, thanking for the heroic action, being scared to the point where she couldn't move and do anything, which then Yuri didn't seem to be alright, as her first encounter of the rumored molestation was unpleasant, calling the experience nauseating. The high schooler shuddered a bit as Yuri realized she was late for school. We then gets introduced to the Mitsuya school full of delinquents, where a pure and pretty maiden was standing there alone by herself. The delinquents gossiped about her being the rumored young lady as she passed by, describing her for being out of place as she is apparently super rich, wondering if she would be alright. They described her first impressions of already throwing Takashi, the boss of the classroom, on her first day, calling out Takashi bad at fighting, which they proceed to badmouth Takashi. Yuri was walking down the hallway when she heard laughter from the other side of the wall. On that side, a group of delinquents could be seen mocking and making fun of a fellow classman by shaving his head. Yuri calls out to the group, wondering what they might be doing. She approached them, which they immediately recognized her for being the rumored young lady, calling her hot, and this being a buzz. The word buzz seems to puzzle Yuri, which they explained themselves being a trio of video streamers named Komonet. And at this moment they seem to be viral, exceeding 400,000 view counts. They then introduced the guy for being make fun of, named Xavier, being the creepy character always happy for their show. Yuri looks at them with disgust as they explain Xavier responding to the unreasonable requests, which the viewers seem to act like creepy Reddit mod users. Yuri still seems to be confused as they called out her piqued interest to be cute, pointing out chat is getting lively by her reactions. The group suddenly got a brilliant idea while smirking, asking if they should have another popular project for their awaiting viewers. They then point the camera towards Yuri, questioning what is her melon size. making the chat go crazy. Meanwhile, Yuri doesn't seem to understand as they needed to point out their slang, which Yuri suddenly became dark-eyed, being embarrassed a bit, which they seemed to misunderstood her as she elegantly explained of not knowing her size until she asked her old man. The group seems to laugh at her reply while the viewers demands on touching her melons. They immediately made Xavier their pet to do the request, which Xavier seems to decline on bidding to the request, which they asked him on not making this harder than it looks. Xavier's friend suddenly threatened him to get disciplined again, which made him nervous all of a sudden. Xavier clearly doesn't want to get disciplined again. He then decided to do so while nervously thinking about it. Yuri suddenly questions his actions and decision on being okay with his friend's demands. He looks at her with confusion, asking what does she mean. She pointed out the fact that too, if his friends are forcing him only to do things he doesn't want, and if he doesn't like it, he has to fight it himself. As this kind of relationship, neither that of a camaraderie or friendship anymore. Xavier once thought of them being friends, close and trusting each other, as they decided to start streaming together, which they aimed to becoming famous and earning a lot. Although after they started streaming, everything went downhill as their relationship completely changed after that. As between viewers that demanded more extreme contents, the rise of expectations also increased with their popularity. The constant burnout and back-to-back streaming style made two of his friends to succumb to pressure and started acting out of control. He then decided to put a stop to this, as they are his friends. Not wanting to do it anymore, his friends deemed him useless, stepping up to do the demands of their viewers. Xavier tried stopping him as he seems acting rashly, which he called out to stop his actions as he reached out to Yuri. Meanwhile, Xavier could be seen clenching his fists as he thought of being the only who can stop the actions of his friends is none other than himself. Yuri suddenly lights up, enthusiastic about the turn of events as the one holding the camera seemed to be puzzled by his actions. The two got into a fight, pinning his friend down, not agreeing to stream anymore going forward, as he is the one who won't forgive for their actions and rash actions. As the viewers gets crazy for the altercation as the friend realizes on helping his friend out, but is surprised as Yuri suddenly grabbed him on the shoulder, putting an immediate knockdown, calling out his rudeness for interrupting a one-on fight in front of a live audience. The viewers' compliments are going wild, as also for Xavier being the spotlight of the show. As this was happening, a certain viewer could be seen in distraught, calling out her heroic actions of pretending to be a hero. He calls out Yuri on being ahead of herself. Pissed by live footage, he destroyed his phone, wanting to crush her no matter how.